I know we're live. Give me 1 second. Okay. Hello.
Laddies.
Welcome to our stream. We are talking about God and Goddesses today. We were supposed to do it last Thursday, but we were having too many technical issues, and with things coming up closer to the holiday of the 4th of July, I think it just kind of didn't work out in our favor. But we're here today, and hopefully things will go well. Go on.
Benny?
Yeah.
What did you say?
I accidentally had the stream going at the same time. I forgot to mute it, and it sounded like everyone was talking over each other, and I was about to say that, but then I realized it was me being a moron.
No.
So,
lovely Benny, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, I'm your lovely co-host, as always, Benny.
And your main
host says hello, uwu.
Hello.
Ooh, hey.
Uwu, U-W-U, uwu.
Oh God, damn it.
I am your host of the evening. I am joined by the other host, but they're having mic issues, so they will be sitting out for the next 2 streams that we're gonna do on Thursday and the next following Monday. I'm also joined by my other co-host, but I think he's just more or less here to stream it on Twitch, so they will be both being mute for this stream.
He's here for the ride to listen to the content because he's interested.
Yeah. God damn it, IROC. Dwaddy Bwanny.
Oh my God. Raven,
I love it when you call me Big Papa.
Raven, no.
Actually, real quickly, I wasn't able to log into the Twitch thing yet, sorry.
Oh, well,
That's
Lilith
right.
is here. Lilith, you want to give the thingy for him?
Well, and I said I was gonna be a little late too, so.
Yeah, it's alright.
It's all right.
Don't worry
we
about
probably we don't need to do Twitch if you can't.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you want to sit and listen, you can.
Okay.
Okay. And for everyone who is not mute today, you want to introduce yourself, starting with Ben? Oh, you already introduced yourself.
Well, whatever. I'm still your lovely co-host, Benny. And I will be sharing information on the goddess Isis.
Oh, and I'm going to be doing, what is it? I'm going to be covering Lilith's studies, so I'm doing Seth and Hathor. Yeah, I think that's how you say her name. Pretty sure. Yeah.
Sweet.
All right. And yeah. And I'm also your host.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Did you say yours, Rain?
We're going in order, right?
Yeah, you're next.
You're next.
Dumbass.
Oh, I forgot my name. I thought it was last.
You're an idiot.
You
listen.
forgot your name? What?
No, I forgot the name on Discord. My name's Rain. I'm doing Anubis.
Anubis.
Listen, I'm trying. I'm doing Anubis for my research topic. Cat, go. Stop bullying me.
That's my lovely boy, Rainy. Alrighty. I am Small, and I am going to do the God of all gods, Ra. God, I think, who created all y'all, so we'll see.
Oh, sorry, I'm adjusting my mic. Give me a second.
You're fine.
Oh, dear.
Alright, so since Ra is the god of all gods and he is our father, and more or less, I don't know if he's Hathor's father.
Ra,
I will literally tell you who he is the father of in a second.
But yeah, since he is the creator of all creation, I'm gonna let Small go first.
Technically, yes.
Yeah,
because he created the first gods, and then they created gods, and
a
lot of incest happened.
Well,
but,
yeah. Ra is portrayed as a hawk-headed man with a sun disk resting on his head. He created himself. No one created him. He created himself. From the waters of chaos. And there he created all the gods and the universe. He is the father of the first godly couple, Shu and Tefnut, who represent air and moisture, grandfather of Geb and Nut, who symbolize the earth and sky, great-grandfather of Osiris, Set, Isis, Nephthys, and great-great-grandfather of Horus. These gods are symbolized the combined attributes of the divine to function in the world. Ra is also the father of Hathor, known as the Eye of Ra. Someone forgot to mention that. He represents sunlight, warmth, and growth. It was only natural that the ancient Egyptians would believe him to be the creator of the world, as well as part of him being represented in every other god. The ancient Egyptians believed that every god should illustrate some aspect of him, while Ra himself should also represent every god. So that's why you have merged gods like Atum Ra and such. The ancient Egyptians believed that as a sun god, Ra's role was to sail across the heavens during the day in his boat called the Baroque of Millions of Years. In the morning, when Ra emerged from the east, his boat was named Majet, which meant becoming weak. At the end of the day, it was believed that Ra died, swallowed by Nut, and sailed on to the underworld, leaving the moon in his place to light up the world. Ra was reborn at the dawn of the very next day, so it's a repeating cycle. During his journey across the heavens during the day, he fought with his main enemy, an evil serpent named Apep, or also the Lord of Chaos, known as Benny. Anyway. In some stories, Ra, in the form of a cat named Mao, defeats the evil serpent Apep. This is partially the reason as to why cats are so highly revered in Egypt. You changed your name, Rain. Oh my god. Ra created himself from the primordial chaos. Yes, he is also known as Re and Atum. Although Ra was highly revered and devotedly worshipped by the ancient Egyptians, there is a story to suggest he eventually grew weak. In the legend of Ra, Isis, and the snake, as he grew old, he dribbled saliva. I know this is going to get weird. Isis knew that Ra's power was hidden in his secret name. Believe it, that secret name was never uttered in any of the stories, so I don't believe it's known even in the Egyptian religion. So, Isis gathered Ra's saliva, created a snake out of it. He set the snake in Ra's path, and it bit him. Isis wanted the power that Ra had always enjoyed, but she knew that she had to get him to tell her his secret name. Eventually, because of the pain he was in, Ra allowed Isis to search through him, and in so doing, she healed him, and Ra's power was transferred to her. Next is a bit on Hathor, but not much. Present in the ancient Egyptian mythology is the Eye of Ra, shown as the sun disk with two Uraeus cobras coiled around it next to the white and red crowns of Upper and Lower Egypt. Initially associated with Horus, similar to the Wedjet, the Eye of Horus, the Eye of Ra shifted positions in the myths, becoming both an extension of Ra's power and a separate entity altogether. By around 4th century BC, Egypt became a Hellenistic kingdom under the Ptolemaic? Is that how you say it?
I believe so.
I'm not sure.
We'll see. Ptolemaic dynasty, 305 to 30 BC, which assumed the pharaoh role, maintaining the traditional religion and building or rebuilding many temples. Due to the cross-cultural syncretism, emerged Serapis, a god who combined Osiris and Apis with characteristics of Greek deities, who became very popular among the Greek population. Nevertheless, for the most part, the two belief systems remained separate, and the Egyptian deities remained Egyptian. Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire in 30 BC, and with the Ptolemaic, never can say it, kings replaced by distant emperors. The cult of Isis appealed even to Greeks and Romans outside Egypt, and the Hellenized form it spread. You have hiccups again? Spread across the empire. In Egypt itself, go drink water. As the empire weakened, official temples fell into decay, And without their centralizing influence, religious practice became fragmented and localized. Meanwhile, Christianity spread across Egypt, and in the 3rd and 4th century AD, edicts by Christian emperors and iconoclasm, hopefully that's how you say it, by local Christians eroded traditional beliefs. And while it persisted among the populace for some time, Egyptian religion slowly faded away, but it is still around, just not as well populated and big as it was back in the day. So that's Ra. Ra is the king, the creator of everything.
Who's next?
Following that, we're going with Ben on ISIS.
Yeah, ISIS.
Yeah.
ISIS killed him.
Yeah.
Well, Isis is a name meaning throne. At first, she was an obscure goddess, having no temples dedicated to her. But with time, she actually became one of the most important goddesses.
They said, I think Ra
And
is trying to
actually-
stab Ben.
What?
Rock Green said, I think Ra is trying to stab a Ben.
Ra should try to stab Ben.
Yeah.
Is that what you just said?
Wow.
I think Ra is trying to stab Ben. Sorry, but continue.
Ow, my leg! Anyway.
Oh god!
Her influence actually spread to the Roman Empire and England and Afghanistan.
Oh.
She's also worshipped today by some pagans. So she's still around. She was a deity that mostly had to do with the passages of the dead and rites of the dead. So in like a lot of, I guess, funeral type things, she was involved. She was said to cure the sick and bring the dead back to life. She was also seen as a mother figure and a role model to most women. And it is actually said that picture carvings and pictures and statues of her breastfeeding Horus, I think it was. It was Horus.
Mm-hmm.
Inspired the images of the Mother Mary and Jesus. It was said to have inspired a lot of those art pieces. So that's a fun fact. But she's normally represented as a beautiful woman with the sign of the throne or sun disk somewhere on the statue or painting or whatever, and cow horns on her head, though she has also been represented as a scorpion, a bird, and a cow. She was not mentioned at all between 2465 to 2300. I don't know these numbers. Sorry. But she wasn't mentioned for a while. But when it came to I guess it's called the pyramid text, she is often mentioned, offering assistance to like pharaohs and such. And then later it said that she offered help to all of Egypt's dead. Basically, the story of Isis was developed by the followers of Ra, saying she was the daughter of Jeb and Nut, as well as sister to Osiris, Seth. Sorry, he has two names. Set
You could say
and Seth.
either.
Yeah. And Nephis. She married Osiris and taught women how to weave, bake, and brew beer. Seth tried to kill Osiris by trapping him in a chest encased in lead and tossed him in the Nile.
Yes.
This caused Isis to search for him. She found him and brought his body back, where Seth then hacked him into pieces and scattered his body parts throughout Egypt.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Isis then took the form of a bird, and with the help of her sister Nephis, gathered all the pieces of his body, except they could not find the penis. Shows you how
That sucks
mature
for
we
her.
are. Can't even not laugh at that. We're so mature, guys. But and they put him back together and turned him into a mummy. Then 9 months later, she gave birth to Horus. Osiris, after a while, became king of the dead. I'm pretty sure he actually replaced Anubis. But I could be wrong there. We'll learn more if we get to it when we get mother and wife, staying in the background when things went well, but never hesitating to protect her husband and children if needed, which caused her to be seen as a goddess of protection. Her influence had spread to Greece and Rome, as well as Afghanistan and many others. Even today, pagans worship her. So that's what I found on Isis. There may be more, but that's the most I could really dig up that wasn't really in depth with too many other gods that we were covering. So,
I mean, again, tried to kill
yeah.
Ra. Killed Ra.
Well, not exactly. She tried to kill Seth, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So her brother.
Yeah.
She tried to kill her brother for trying to kill her brother, whom she married.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of incest
I'm sorry,
there, man.
I'm getting a little off topic.
It's still on topic because it's still like your god, your goddess. With that though, I'll go into a little bit more about Hathor. That's not the one I researched, but this is the one Lilith researched. I'm just being her voice for right now. So Hathor, she was also in the house of Horus, was a major goddess in ancient Egypt region who has played a variety of roles. As a sky deity, she is also the mother or consort of the sky god Horus and the sun god Ra, both whom were connected with kingship, and thus she was the symbolic mother of their earthly representations. The pharaoh. She was also one of the several goddesses who acted as the Eye of Ra, Ra's feminine counterpart, and in this form she was a vengeful aspect that protected him from his enemies. Her
Just real quick, Irock Green says, I think Ra is trying to snap Ben.
Probably. Are you feeling it?
Oh, I'm feeling it. I'm going, guys. I'm going.
We're gonna have to go to Ben's house and wrap her in some toilet paper. It's fine. Let's see. Her beneficent side represented music, dance, joy, love, sexuality, and mental care. Hold on, this is like so tiny. Whatever, it's motherly care. And the mother of her son and the mother of their sons. These two aspects of the goddess exemplified the Egyptian concept of fertility. Hathor crossed boundaries between worlds and helping deceased souls into the transition of the afterlife. So she helped those souls pass from the mortal world into the spiritual world. Hathor was also depicted as a cow, symbolizing her maternal and celestial aspect, though her most common form was a woman wearing a headdress, or cow horns and a sundress. She is also represented as a lioness, cobra, or sycamore tree. Cattle goddess similar to Hathor were portrayed in Egyptian art in the 4th millennia BC, but she may not have appeared until the Old Kingdom 2686 to 2181 BC, with the patron of Old Kingdom rulers. She became one of Egyptians' most important deities. More temples were depicted in her than any other goddess. She was the most prominent temple. Oh, her most prominent temple was Dendera in Upper Egypt. If I said that wrong, I apologize. She was also worshipped in temples of her male consorts. The Egyptians connected her with foreign lands such as Anuba and Canaan. Sorry if I am mispronouncing these places. And their valuable goods such as incense and semi-precious stones. And some of the people in those lands adapted her worship. In Egypt, she was one of the deities commonly evoked in private prayer and true offerings, particularly by women desiring children. So, to sum that up, she was most worshipped by women, the lands, and also by women who desired to bear children. So, making offerings to her, if I'm reading this correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because this is not my research. I'm assuming they gave her offerings so women can become pregnant. If I'm reading that correctly. During the New Kingdom, 1550 to 1070 BC, goddess such as Mut and Isis encroached on Hathor's position in royal ideology, but she remained one of the most widely worshipped deities. After the end of the New Kingdom, Hathor I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Hathor was increasingly overshadowed by Isis. Thanks, Ben. But she continued to be worshipped until the extinction of in the ancient Egypt region in the early century AD. I don't know do you guys want me to go over the origins and all that stuff?
It's up to you.
I'll go over it. See, her origins. Images of a cattle appeared frequently in the artwork of dynastic Egypt before 3100 BC, as do images of women with uprest carved arms, in the shape of boar horns. Both types of imagery may resemble goddesses connecting to cattle. Cows are very important in many cultures, including ancient Egypt, as a symbol of motherhood and nourishment because they care for their calves and provide humans with milk. There's a lot I can't read right here. This is the words I can't pronounce. It's the Drazine palette, a stone palette from Nequata. It's the second period of the prehistory, which dates back to 3,500 to 3,200 BC. This shows a silhouette of a cow's head with inward carving horns surrounded by stars. The palette suggests that the cow was also linked to the sky, as were several goddesses from earlier times who were represented in this form. Hathor and a couple of others. Nut was part of them too. Despite these early depictions, Hathor is not mentioned or depicted until the 4th dynasty, which was 2613 to 2494 BC of the Old Kingdom, although several artifacts that referenced her may date back to the early dynastic period, which was 3100 to 2686 BC, when Hathor does clearly appear, her horns carved outward rather than inward, in like those in pre-dynastic art. Let's see. A bovine deity with inner carving horns appears in the Namur. Can't say this. Narmer, whatever. It's NAR.
Would you like help with
MER. It's whatever that is. The Egyptologist Henry George Fisher suggested that this deity may be Bat, a goddess who later was depicted with a woman's face and an inward curling horns, seemingly reflecting the curve of the cow's horns. The Egyptologist Lana Troy, however, identifies the passage in the pyramid text from the late Old Kingdom that connects Hathor with the apron of the king. In the 4th dynasty, Hathor rose rapidly to, I think this is supposed to be worship. She supplemented an early crocodile god who is worshipped in Dendora in Upper Egypt to become Dendora's patron deity. She was increasingly absorbed by the cult of Bat in neighboring region of Hu. So that in the Middle Kingdom, which was dated 2055 to 1656 BC, the two deities fused into one. So with the battling regions, and also Bat and Hathor basically became the same, worshipped as the same being. Unlike that of the earlier years, focused heavily on the sun god Ra as the king of gods and the father of the early kings, Hathor ascended with Ra and became his wife, mythological wife, and thus the divine mother of the pharaoh. Her roles taken part in Egypt and early Egyptian culture. Hathor took many forms and appeared in a wide variety of roles. The Egyptologist Robin Glemm suggested that these diverse forms emerged when the royal goddess was promoted by the Old Kingdom court many local goddesses worshipped by a general prolace, who were then treated as manifestations of her. Egyptian text often spoken as less commonly or of many more Hathors, as many as 362. So she is in many of the Egyptian texts, and she manifests as different goddesses, I'm assuming, is what I read here. For this reason, Glemm calls her a type of deity rather than a single deity. So she takes on many different types of forms, and it is believed that she takes up to, well, at least for this this Egyptianologist, she thinks that she takes up to 362 forms of herself. More than the other deities, she exemplifies the Egyptian perception of fertility, femininity, not fertility. I'm sorry, femininity. Can't say it, but you know what I'm trying to say. She's basically I want to say like the Lilith of
Feminist
Egypt.
of Egypt?
No, not feminist. The Lilith of Egypt, basically.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Hathor was one of the several goddesses believed to. This is her association with the afterlife. Hathor was one of the several goddesses believed to assist deceased souls into the afterlife. One of these was Eminent. Eminent, the goddess of the West, who personified the Necropolis, or cluster of tombs in the west bank of the Nile, and the realm of the afterlife itself. She was often regarded as a specialist manifestation of Hathor. Just as she crossed the boundary between Egypt and the foreign lands, Hathor passed through the boundary between the living and the realm of the dead. She helped the spirits of deceased humans enter the realm of the dead, and also closely linked to the tomb sites where the transition began. She was often portrayed as a specialized mountain with a cow of Hathor emerging from it. Her role as a sky goddess was also linked to the afterlife, because the sky goddess, either Nut or Hathor, assisted Ra in his daily rebirth. She was an important part of the Egyptian afterlife beliefs, according to which deceased humans were reborn like the sun god. Coffins, tombs, and the underworld itself were interpreted as the womb of the goddess, from which the deceased souls would be reborn. Nut, Hathor, and Immediate could each, in different texts, lead the deceased into the place where they would receive food and drink for eternal substance. Thus, Hathor, as Eminent, I can't pronounce that name, but hopefully, so forgive me, often appears on tombs, welcoming the deceased person as her child into a blissful afterlife. So, in short, she basically was the person that you would be greeted when you entered the realm of the dead. And she would bring you to your bounty so you could feel more welcomed. The afterlife also had a sexual aspect in the Osiris, in the Osiris myth. The murdered god Osiris was resurrected when he coupled when he did it with Iris and conceived Horus. In the solar ideology, Ra's union with the sky goddess allowed his own rebirth. Sex, therefore, represented the rebirth of the deceased. And the goddesses like Isis and Hathor served to bring about the deceased to new life, but they merely stimulated the male deities' regenerative powers rather than play the center role. So basically, she had sex with Ra and
Well, damn.
gave him new life. And as for Osiris, he had sex with Isis, which brought him back to life, and also helped conceive of Horus.
So sex is good.
Yeah, so sex basically brings back people from the dead.
Yep, if somebody dies and you want to bring them back, fuck
Fuck their corpse.
Fuck 'em.
Yeah.
Alright, time to bring my cat back, Rebecca.
Yep. But that was
Do not.
But basically, what they were trying to say here, though, was that these two already had that regenerative power. They were just stimulating it to bring it back, to bring it forth. So they did not. It wasn't really them themselves that helped bring about their rebirth, but rather than basically light the flames to it. Ancient Egyptian prefixed the names of the deceased with Osiris's name to connect them with his with his resurrection. For example, a woman named I can't say that, basically over time they increasingly became associated with the deceased with both male and female divine powers. As early as the late Old Kingdom, women were sometimes said to join the worshippers of Hathor in the afterlife, just as men followed Osiris. The third immediate period, which was 1070 to 664 BC, Egyptians began to add Hathor's name to the list of deceased women in the place of that of Osiris. In some cases, women were called Osiris Hathor, indicating that they were that they both benefited from the reviving power of both deities. In these late periods, Hathor was also sometimes said to rule the afterlife as Osiris did. It's a lot here. You did a lot, man. I'm probably not gonna go over everything, but I'm gonna briefly touch on a few of these from different subjects. So, her placement within the foreign lands and goods. Egyptian maintained trade relations with the coastal cities of Syria and Canaan, particularly by Bolus, placing the Egyptian region in contact with the regions of that region. At some point, perhaps as early as the Old Kingdoms, the Egyptians began to refer to the patron of Babyloso as a local form of Hathor. So strong was Hathor's link to Babyloso. The text from Didaria says that she reside here. The Egyptians sometimes equated Antina, an aggressive goddess who became worshipped in Egypt during the New Kingdom, with Hathor. Her motherhood and queenship. Hathor was considered the mother of various children deities, as suggested by her name. She is often thought of both Horus's mother and consort, both the king's wife and his heir's mother. Hathor was the mythical counterpart of human queens. Isis and Osiris were considered Horus's parents in the Osiris myth as far back as the late Old Kingdom, but the relationship between Horus and Hathor may be older still. If so, Horus only came to be linked with Isis and Osiris as the Osiris myth emerged during the Old Kingdom. Even after Isis was firmly established by Horus's mother, Hathor continued to appear in the role, especially when nursing the pharaoh. The image of the Hathor cow with a child in her arms represented his mythological upbringing in. I think that's the one where you said was what do you call it? Related to the inspiration of the Virgin Mary and Jesus, right? Ben?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they were talking about here.
Yes.
And,
it was the...
And the milky sap of the sycamore, which the Egyptians regarded as a symbol of life, became one of her symbols. The milk was basically the water of the Nile, and thus brought fertility. In the late Paleolithic and Roman periods, many temples contained a creation myth that adapted long-standing ideas about creation. So her role in sexuality, beauty, and love, Hathor's joyful side indicated her feminine procreative powers. In some creation myths, she helped produce the world itself. Antunum, a creator god who contained all things within himself, was also said to have produced his children, Su and Tefnut, and thus began the process of creation by masturbating.
Jeez.
Yeah. The hand he used for this act, the hand of Antunum, represented the female aspect of himself, and which can be perceived by Hathor. So basically, she was the hand that helped him stroke his cock when the world was created. Yeah. Hathor could be the consort of many male gods, of whom Ra was only the most prominent. So she was basically represented more with being with Ra than any other male deity. Mut was the usual consort of Anunum. I can't say it. And the preeminent deity during the New Kingdom, who was often linked with Ra, but Mut was rarely portrayed alongside Anunum in context related to sex or fertility, and in those circumstances Hathor or Isis stood by his side instead. In the late periods of Egyptian history, the form of Hathor from Dendera and the form of Horus from Edfu were considered husband and wife, and in different versions, the myth of distant goddesses, Hathor was the consort of Metu, and Hathor Tanef, the consort of Su. Hathor's sexual side was seen in some short stories, in fragments of the Middle Kingdom story known as the Tale of the Herdsman. A herdsman encounters a fairy-like goddess in the mush and reacts with terror. On another day, he encounters her as a nude woman. Most Egyptianologists who study this story think that this woman was Hathor or a goddess like her, one who can be wild and dangerous, but yet erotic. Sky. So her thing with Sky Goddess, so her connection with Sky Goddess. Hathor was a solar deity, a female counterpart to the sun god, such as Horus and Ra, and was a member of the divine entourage that accompanied Ra as he sailed through the skies of his barque. She was commonly called the Golden One, referring to the radiance of the sun, and text from her temple at Dendera say, her rays illuminated the whole earth. She was sometimes fused with other goddesses, and was worshiped. Yeah, I'm not gonna go over everything, so I'm just gonna quickly zoom by this. She was one of the many goddesses to take in the role of the Eye of Ra, a feminine personification of the disk of the sun and the extension of Ra's own powers. Ra was sometimes portrayed inside of the disk, which Trey interprets as meaning that the eye goddess was thought of as a womb from which the sun god was born. So in many other depictions of her, I'm assuming that she was actually also the mother of Ra, which gave birth to him. And I'm just gonna
He had parents.
So from what I'm understanding and what I just read throughout all this is basically her main imagery in the Egyptian culture was that she was more or less viewed as both the wife of Ra and also his new mother when she had rebirthed him from death. She is also very well known as the mother of all life and is basically their version of Mother Earth, and is also depicted as as the more popular way she's depicted is a cow with horns, I'm assuming. Because cows are very much worshipped in Egypt as they bring about fertility, motherhood, and also the beginning of new life. And with that, I flip it over to my research on Seth. Give me a second. So Seth, yeah. So Seth or Set, he goes by both names. He goes by many names too, but I'm just gonna refer to him as Seth and Set. He is known as the god of chaos and destruction. He was worshipped around the pre-dynastic period as part of the Endeed of Heliopolis, and he is the son of Nut and Get, and also the brother of Osiris, Horus the Elder, Isis, and Nephthys. He was the storm god associated with strange and frightening events such as the eclipse, thunderstorms, and earthquakes. He is also represented the desert and the extension of foreign lands beyond the desert. His glyphic appears in Egyptian words for turmoil, confusion, illness, storm, and rage. He was also considered to be very strong, but not dangerous and strange. However, he is not an evil being, as many would believe. He is a friend to the dead in helping him ascend to heaven on his ladder, and he is the protector of life-giving oasis to the desert. He is also a powerful ally to the pharaoh and even the sun god Ra. In the earliest representation of Set, he can be found on a carved iron column from the the Amniotic period, which was 4,500 BC to 35 BC. He has also appeared as the famous scorpion masthead. He is worshipped.
God damn it!
What?
What's wrong?
Melky just said this feels like a class PowerPoint
It
presentation.
does, and it sounds like you're not
And-
done talking.
I'm sorry. I'm reading the chat for people.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but like,
Also, Rain, turn your fan down.
I'm sorry.
like I didn't really look over your goddess because I didn't study it. Like, I thought,
Sure.
because Theo was supposed to study it, or Theo was supposed to take over for me, so I didn't really look at it until today.
Rip.
Because it was all last
That's
minute.
okay. Keep going. We're
But
almost done.
I just wanted to say, like, in many of his depictions, he's most famous for wearing what was it? I can't remember the animal on top of my head, but it was more like a canine-like creature, a boar, as well. If I can find it in my notes, hold on. I'm on my Google thing, so hold on.
Oh, hang on.
I do know, like, he was more. It was clearly associated with more or less Upper Egypt, and he was more He was a more popular god in Upper Egypt in the pre-domestic dynastic period. He is also known for being the protector of the god of Ra, after protecting him from the serpent that tried to kill him. He was later also adopted by the son of Ra. And, oh yeah, here it is. He's more or less depicted as the black boar who swallowed the moon with each month. And also basically snuffing out the light. He's also he can also be identified with the hippos, crocodiles, scorpions, turtles, pigs, and donkeys, all animals which were considered to be unclean and dangerous.
Donkeys aren't dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, they're considered dirty, so, like,
Well,
those
okay.
animals usually bring about illness, and yeah. so illness and uncleaned animals were more or less associated with him. He was also known to. He also did before being adopted by Ra. He tried to take over Egypt by taking out Osiris, but was later defeated by Osiris and Isis. He did acquire many wives throughout his reign, but he never was blessed with any children, even though he was married to the goddess of childbirth.
Goose.
I have more, but like, because I'm kind of like tired talking over both mine and Lilith's research, so I'm gonna pass it on over to Anubis.
All right, I'm gonna go for a walk. If you guys are still on when I get back, I'll come back in.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go for now.
All right.
Alright.
Bye.
Bye.
Next is Anubis. Oh, that was Samuel Marcos.
I can no, because I feel I don't know why,
Oh, you'll
but I
be
can feel the
fine,
anxiety
don't worry.
coursing through my veins. I know. It's just that happens sometimes. Depicted as from my notes, right?
All right.
Depicted by depicted as a black canine, a jackal-dog hybrid with pointed ears, or a muscular man with the head of a jackal. Black was chosen for its symbolism, not because Egyptian dogs or jackals are black, but it symbolizes the decay of the body as well as the fertile soil of the Nile River Valley, which represented regeneration and life. Anubis was known as the first of the Wanderers, prior to the rise of Osiris in the Middle Kingdom. Westerners were the Egyptian term for departed souls in the afterlife. They laid westwards in the direction of the sunset. Anubis was associated with the eternal justice and maintained this association up until I assume I think Isis took his job. Um, no, Osiris was replaced by Osiris, who was then given the honorary title First of the Westerners. Anubis is considered the son of Ra and Haset, who is associated with Hathor. Um, the sorry. After his assimilation into the Oasis myth, he is held to be the son of Osiris and his sister-in-law, Nefertiti. Yeah, yes, Nefertiti. I was right. He's usually shown tending to corpses of the king, presiding over mummification and funerals, or standing with Osiris, Thorn, or other gods at the welding of the heart of the soul in the Hall of Truth in the afterlife. He is a popular figure who is standing or kneeling with a jackal's head, holding the golden scrolls in which the hearts of the soul be weighed against the white feather of truth. He has a daughter named Quebet, who brings cool water to the souls of the dead in the Hall of Truth and comforts the newly deceased. Some nicknames that are picked for Anubis is such as Ruler of the Nine Bows, the Dog Who Swallows Millions, Master of Secrets, he who is in the place of embalming, for most of the divine booth, and and he who is upon his sacred mountain. The story that I read up was Nefertiti, Set's wife, was attracted by the beauty of Osiris, Set's brother, and transformed himself to appear to him as Iris, Oris's wife. Oris slept with Nefertiti, Oris, Huperneti, and she became pregnant with Anubis, but abandoned him shortly after his birth in fear that the affair would be discovered by Set. Isis set out about the Isis set out to find Anubis. Once he found him, she adopted him as her own. Set also found out about the affair, and this is given as part as the reason for his murder of Horus. So they found out, and Horus died, which I think is kind of overkill. But again, he did sleep with someone. They did end up sleeping with someone else. So, uh, Animus is regularly called upon as assessed from the amulet tomb paintings and in written work for protection and vengeance, especially as a power ally in enforcing curses placed on others or defending one's self from such curse. The the curse part, Anubis is used primarily to protect tombs. Usually used to protect tombs of pharaohs who have died. Um, if someone were to break into such tomb, they would become cursed. Now, it ranges the effect of the curse, but on its extreme end, the harshest punishment you can get from a curse is death. death for you and death for any other person that was present while you did such action.
Oh, right. Because when they
Uh,
discovered the pharaoh's tomb, all of the people who found the tomb suddenly died.
died. Yeah,
All of them,
I
one by
think
one.
I think one died by falling stairs. I'll have to look into that more. Although Anubis is very represented in artworks throughout Egypt's history, he did not play a major role in many myths. His early role as Lord of the Dead prior to the assimilation into Osiris myth was static, as he only performed a single solemn function which did not lead himself to elaboration. Now, believe it or not, people worship Anubis, people worship Osiris, Iris, Ra.
Mm-hmm.
Priests of Anubis were male and often wore masks of the god made from wood, and they were used to perform in rituals. The god's cult center was in Upper Egypt in the so-called City of the Dogs, or Knaspus. Although he does not play a major role in many myths, his popularity was immense and was as many Egyptian deities. He has slight Greek association to Hermes, who guided dead in the afterlife, but after that, there's no other connection. The super candid, as depicted in Greek, often offered people the assurance that their body would be respected at death, and that their souls would be protected in the afterlife, and that they would receive fair judgment for their life's work. But judgment for their life's work was is the main important piece. Upon death, one's fate in the afterlife was determined by weighing one's heart. One's heart was kept within the body during mummification so it can travel with the deceased into the afterlife. They believed that the heart was the soul of the body. Everything else, from the brain to the liver, lungs, they were removed and kept in separate jars. Except the brain. The brain was picked to death and drained for the nose. Duot is a realm of the dead in ancient Egypt mythology. It has been represented as a hieroglyphes with a star in it.
Hieroglyphics.
So sorry.
Sorry.
uh, Hieroglyphics are a star with a circle. So it looks similar to a pentagram, but the star is skinnier and it's more compact into the circle itself. Anubis, or the god of death, weighed the person's heart on a scale against the feather of Mata, the goddess of order, truth, and righteousness. If the heart weighed more than the feather, that meant that the person was more wicked than good, and their heart would be devoured by Amit. Amit was a demon with a head of a crocodile, the front half body of a leopard, the back half of a hippopotamus, and goat arms. If a person's heart was devoured, would be completely annihilated from existence. But if your heart weighed any other way, proving that you're righteous and truthful, you would give it a second shot at life. Sorry if I messed up there. I was kind of trying not to mess up the words too much.
You're
Fine,
okay.
sweetheart.
But yeah, that's all of my notes that I have on Anubis. I have some definitions if you guys are confused
Go ahead.
for some of the words. Um, so they reach on the definitions primarily focus on the individuals that are mentioned. So like Quobat and Thor. So Nefertiti was one of the original five gods of ancient Egypt, born of the union of Jeb, earth, and Nut, sky. After the creation of the world, she was the fourth born after Osiris, Isis, and Set, and was the older sister of Horus, usually referred to as Horus the Elder. Hathor was an ancient Egyptian goddess associated later with Iris and earlier with Sekhmet, but eventually was considered the primeval goddess from whom all others were derived. She is usually depicted as a woman with the head of a cow, ears of a cow, or simply in cow form. Horus is the Egyptian lord of the underworld and judge of the dead. Brother husband to Isis, and the one of the most important gods in ancient Egypt. The name Horus is the Latinized form of the Egyptian Osir, which is interpreted as powerful or mighty. Thor is the Egyptian god of writing, magic, wisdom, and the moon. He is one of the most important gods in ancient Egypt, alternatively said to be self-created or born from the seed of Horus, from the forehead of Set. Quebet is a benevolent goddess of ancient Egypt. She's the daughter of the god of death Anubis, granddaughter of the goddess Nethys and god Horus. That part kind of confused me because it said Horus was the lord of the underworld, and then you have Anubis who's lord of the underworld. But it turns out that as the Horus myth grew heavily in popularity, they treated him as more of the judgment of death than Anubis. And those are all my notes.
Sweet.
Yay!
So, I know a lot, probably you guys are wondering why we're going through, all this. I mean, I kind of briefly explained to each and one of you, but, like, the main reason why we're going through gods and goddesses and this and that is more or less because these people were looked upon and established what we now call society and their laws and reasons, and they were many of the influences throughout each time period that they were associated with. So Lilith and Lucifer, they were the reason for why there was so much bad and sin, and upon other reasons, and why we're going from Egyptian and then next week Roman and then the following Greek and this and that is more or less to establish a timeline between how these what we now consider modern day concepts of society and what we go through in society is like we're dissecting each person that we feel a strong connection with, and we are basically establishing that timeline of like, this is why it's this way and this is why it's that way, to give more of an understanding to what this channel is going to be more or less directing about. And we are going to touch on very sensitive topics later on down the line when we're done with all these gods and goddesses. And so big things are happening along the way, and you know, it may offend some people, but our intention is not to offend anyone here. And if we have misrepresented any god or goddess in any way that you feel a personal connection with, or that you strongly believe or done your research on, just like let us know. But more or less, this is just to establish a timeline of like why certain people are in charge, or like why we do certain things. And I feel like this is a great starting ground to better understanding why things are the way that they are. So I just wanted to clarify that for many of you who might think this is just a history channel. It's not. Trust me, there's going to be real discussions happening soon.
Well, for the first part of it, it's going to be a bit of history about how our came to be. But for now, and then afterwards, we're going to talk about actual real life real life shit, yeah?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you like it. Iron, I think. What was their name again? Raven. I'm glad you
Raven.
like it. We are gonna go into like I think Greek mythology, which I'm gonna touch on my girl that I've been working on for like a while,
Yeah.
even before creating this stream. And I just wanted to say a few things like reading over Lilith's notes for her goddess Hathor. I feel like she plays the major role in women's women's placement within Egyptian culture, mainly just being that one deity that they would go to bear offerings so they may bear children for generations to come. She's also known for giving water to the Nile, which also gave birth to many other important aspects of Egypt, because you also got to know that Egypt was in the desert, so life without water must have sucked. So she's basically the reason why it brought about the Nile River, and also the birth of Ra, who created many other gods and goddesses who served alongside him and her, and was also the wife, or what do you want to say, a consort, which basically means girlfriend of many other gods and goddesses.
Yeah, consort.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, she might have been the reason why the Nile, being the only river in the entire world, flows north instead of south.
Yeah, and which I thought was kind of interesting when I was reading over. I mean, again, I went over this like today and also like a couple of days ago, but not in depth really as Lilith did, so she probably could have given you more information about it. Sadly I couldn't, and I apologize. But I do know. Yeah, and I do. I think, what do you call it? For my person that I was researching, Seth, he was basically the bringer of storms, and like he gave birth to he didn't give birth, but like he established those strong warlike connections, because he was a fighter, but he wasn't evil, though many other cultures would like to consider him evil. So yeah, is there anything else you guys would like to say along with it? I know you wanted to touch on like how Egyptian. I know how you said you wanted to touch on how the Egyptian religion kind of faded out.
Yeah, one sec so I can find it.
Okay. But I hope you all, while Small is find that, I hope you all are enjoying our little streams that we're doing. It's not to offend anyone here. We're not trying to be directing towards a certain way. It's to mainly just more or less open the eyes to what things aren't usually talked about as well. Because I know Lucifer is not. Okay, so you got it?
I believe I do.
Yes. Okay. Go for it.
It's touching back on the Ptolemaic era. It's the Ptolemaic era. Hopefully I'm saying this right. Either that or it's Ptolemaic, because there's a silent P. The beliefs changed little after Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire in 30 BC. The cult devices appealed. Legacy. The Egyptian religion produced the temples and tombs, which are ancient Egypt's most enduring monuments, but it also influenced other cultures. In pharaonic times, many of its symbols, such as the Sphinx and winged solar disk, were adopted by other cultures across the Mediterranean and Near East, as were some of its deities, such as Bes. Some of these connections are difficult to trace. The Greek concept of Elysium, that's a word, may have derived from the Egyptian vision of the afterlife. In late antiquity, the Christian conception of hell was most likely influenced by some of the imagery of the duet. Egyptian beliefs also influenced or gave rise to several esoteric belief systems developed by Greeks and Romans, who considered Egypt as a source of mystic wisdom. Hermeticism, for instance, derived from the tradition of secret magical knowledge associated with Thoth. And now we head to modern times, where it is still used. Until into modern times. But its influence on modern societies greatly increased with the French campaign in Egypt and Syria in 1798. And they're seeing the monuments and images. As a result of it, Westerners began to study Egyptian beliefs firsthand, and Egyptians' religious motifs were adopted into Western art. Due to continued interest in Egyptian beliefs, the term of Kemetism have formed based on different reconstructions of ancient religion. So, though Ra, Isis, and Osiris may not be believed in heavily, there are still religious groups for the gods. Ta-da!
Well, so basically, I mean, I don't say it was more or less wiped out. I would say, like, more or less it kind of just infused with, like, with other religions that became more powerful than the Egyptian one.
I mean, it got so diluted and spread out. The Egyptian religion was no longer just Egyptian. It's probably a bit in Judaism, in Christianity, and Catholicism, and Hinduism, and all the other ones. It's just spread out.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what happens throughout history over time. I mean, it's like more or less also has to deal with, you also got to factor in like the ones that are more powerful than they are that were taking over at the time, because Roman that's when the Roman Empire started to expand.
Yeah, the Holy Roman just the Roman Empire. Sorry.
Yeah, and their belief system became more or less the more prominent and more accepted rather than the Egyptian. And from what I've seen, every trend throughout history, the ones basically who have the money and the power rule what people rule what people believe and what people believe to true or not. So like, if I was in a culture and I had more money than you did, I can basically just snap my fingers and have everyone in your tribe or city believe what I believe in just because I have the more power than you do. So that's basically why I think, personally, why it got wiped out.
Yeah. It also turned into Egyptian neo-paganism.
Egyptian neo-paganism?
Is a revival of ancient Egyptian religion and related expressions of religion in classical and late antiquity, emerging during the 1970s.
See, I didn't know that existed.
You do now.
That's kind of interesting.
Oh, they still worship Mot, Bas, Anubis, Sekhmet, and Thoth, among others.
That's interesting. I wonder if any of them taken up Hathor too, because she seems more like
among others. It says.
I want to look into that later. Also, when did we start? Because I can't remember. I didn't have the timer on this time.
We started at like 6:35 for me. So 7:35.
So what time is it for you right now?
7:35 Eastern.
So what time is it for you guys right now?
7:59.
7:59.
9 for me.
So 8. Okay, so
East Coast gang.
if you
it's almost 8 for me. It's almost
East
9
Coast
for them.
gang. An hour 30.
are you comfortable with ending the stream, Lilith? Since we basically covered everything that we could.
I believe we did.
We
Did, yes.
Are you guys comfortable with ending the stream?
I am. I'm good.
Okay. then we'll probably end it. I hope you guys enjoyed what we had offered you guys. I know it's not as long as our
This has
usual.
been, well, it's been an hour 30. It's longer than we usually have.
I mean, usually we go for like 2 to 3 hours, and I know it's not a long stream, but like,
Yeah.
and it's mainly more or less because it's kind of like the Egyptian culture is really hard to like really like it doesn't have as much information as like maybe Christianity or Catholicism. So it's kind of like,
yes.
yeah, so it's kind of like hit or miss. Like many of the information that was provided is also lost. There could be more information about these gods and goddesses that we know, but we probably just can't find it as easily. But what would you find? Oh, well, but with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Next week, we're going to be going over...
This has been our podcast on the ancient Egyptian gods and goddesses.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening in.
Next week, we're going to be going... well, not next week, but Thursday, we're going to be going over Greek gods and goddesses. So stay tuned for that, and I hope you all enjoyed and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you for tuning in, my lovelies.
With that, I bid you adieu.
Bye-bye. I'll have to look it up somewhere else because I can't find anything on it.
Oh man, I
What's the
felt
problem?
something. I was looking through the notes because I remembered the afterlife portion of Hathor, and they mentioned someone named the Mets.
Type it out.
Who is goddess of the West, and then there's Anubis, who's first of the Westerners, and then there's Osiris, who's first of the Westerners. So maybe there's going to be connection there, of course, but to have the same sort of name, kind of weird. But yeah. Yay.
Yay.
Heart pounding anxiety. Ow.
Oh, you'll be fine. I usually hate doing shit like this, but since I had to go first, just like, do what you do normally. If you're going to talk in front of a group of people, you just be like, it's gonna be over in a minute. You'll do fine. Go in it. Ta-da! Do it. Try to make it look like, yeah, you know what the fuck you're doing. Finish it. You're done. Ta-da!
I just didn't want to screw up. That's the thing. That's what
don't
was
worry.
I mean, I screwed up a lot. It don't matter. Like, again, this is like just it's a fun
honey,
stream.
I wished I could have told that you were fucking up, but your mic is pissing me off. It's not your mic, it's your fucking thing. I know it is.
Wait, hold on.